Their loss at the Midoriya Foundation sent waves throughout the MLA. They'd lost not only thousands of their fellow members, but also their leader, and the descendant of Destro himself. Many were disheartened and left the organization altogether. But many more were motivated, determined not to let this stop their ambition. And so, with heavy hearts, they were forced to replace their leader with a new council of powerful members of the organizations. These 6 leaders were now in the main building in their city, sitting at a round table. Senhosha, a man who appeared to be a black skeleton, surrounded by a weird green casing. In actuality, that weird green stuff was his flesh, which was made see-through due to the radiation quirk he possessed. He wore a black business suit. Rayon Hokori, a 10-foot-tall lion man, wearing red robes. He also had a bunch of women surrounding him, and one on his lap. Barosagupu, a man who wore a large wooden mask with 2 long upward-facing horns, and his blue eyes glowed from the eye holes. He wore a long body covering white and brown, gold-trimmed cape, and only his gray-gloved hands could be seen peeking out of it. Masuda Yoso, the youngest out of everyone there, was a woman with black hair, tied into a bun, who wore red and black armor. Hibiju was a woman who had the upper half a beautiful human woman, and the bottom half of a snake, with pure white scales. She had pure white hair and donned a very old-fashioned white and red Miko-like garb. Lastly, there was a man with gray skin, and white hair in a business suit. This was no Hishomu. Well then, I think it's time we properly started, Masuda said. First off, Midoriya. I say we abandon the idea of attacking him directly from now on. It's simply not worth it. Agreed, said Sen, Barozu, Hibi and Nohi. Oh, we're just going to let him get away with making a mockery out of us? Rayon lightly objected. What will that do to morale? Which may I remind you is already at rock bottom. And we can't afford any more deserters. I didn't say we'd leave him alone completely, Masuda said. We definitely need to get our hands on his technology. We'll need it to both increase our own power and increase our funding after Detonarat fell. Speaking of which, do any of you have any plans on how to help with that massive hole in our budget? I'm way ahead of you. My people in the red light district have increased their efforts tenfold, Rayon said, before laughing. Ugh. Many members of the council shook their heads. Well, I doubt any of us can truly replace Destro's financial contributions, so we'll have to decrease our spending for the time being, Hibi said. I agree we should focus our efforts on pilfering Midoriya's technology. With that, we can rebuild ourselves stronger. So Midoriya made us weaker, and now he'll make us stronger. Sen chuckled. How poetic. Speaking of poetic, I recently got some interesting notes from Dr. Garaki. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX it. Only to have her eyes widen in horror at what she saw. On the ground were her parents. Dead. Their bodies being eaten by a young, blonde-haired girl in a purple dress. That being her younger sister, Kara. While she was frozen in shock and fear, her sister seemed to have heard her. She stood up and turned around, revealing the 7-star dragon ball, lodged in her forehead. Kara smiled with her blood-covered lips. Big sis, welcome home. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX to a massive old-fashioned Japanese sliding door. Are you done yet? A few moments later, the door slid open, revealing another ninja. The man donned metal armor, with blades all over it. Namely its legs, wrists, and shoulders. He also wore a black cape, and a metal helmet with 3 spikes arranged in a trident-like fashion on top. It is rude to interrupt a man in mourning. Scorpion. Our men are wondering what you're planning to do now that your daughter has been killed, Scorpion said. If you do not make your stance clear, the more foolish among them may begin to think you're frightened by Midoriya. So be it. The man said as he and Scorpion started walking away from the room. I will let them know the Shredder will not take this lying down. Midoriya will feel the full wrath of the foot. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX with a bottle in his hand. How dare they fire me? I'll kill 'em. I'll kill 'em all. Oh? Said a deep voice. Huh? The man looked up and saw Sin Shinran standing over him. Huh? What do you want? That's what I wanted to ask you, Sin said with a smirk. Do you hate this world? Do you want to hurt it? Make it bleed? If so, then I may have an offer for you. He. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX down on a large pod. The emerald is powerful, but so long as we don't use it to blow up a city, they won't be able to track its use, Cooler answered. So even our experimental use of the emerald won't allow them to track it from all the way back in Japan. Now quit bothering me, and go do your job. Oh, I have. I've already recruited various new promising members to our organization. But they will need a bit of convincing in order to properly cow them in. Frost said. Cooler sighed. Fine, show them the new models. That should keep them complacent. Hopefully. If not, I'll deal with them. Frost shrugged as he started walking out. Just make sure to keep your guard up, cousin. Even with that emerald, All for One still lost. I am aware, and I have no intention of repeating his mistakes, Cooler said. Once this new creation is finished, my new reign will begin. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX vial of remnant they kept in a special room. Astounding. The door opened, and in stepped another man, with golden blonde hair, and bare ears. I knew I'd find you here, Murasaki. Isn't it amazing, Kin? Murasaki said, turning around to face his companion, and holding up the vial. This right here is a liquidized consciousness. A soul made tangible. We've proved that the soul exists. Think about what we could do with this. Kin shook his head. Murasaki, you know we're not supposed to mess with that stuff. We don't have clearance. You lucky there's so lax here, otherwise you'd be fired just for touching it. Come now, Kin, don't you want to explore more of this? We could control life itself. Murasaki said. Always so ambitious. Kin sighed as he turned around to leave. Just put it back. Lest your grand ambitions leave you fired. As Kin left, Murasaki looked down at the vial. One day I will master this. One day. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX two of them were both wandering the ruins of the city where the fight against One for All had taken place. Come on man, this place is prime for looting, and I intend to get the best of the goods before anyone else does, the black-haired man said to his partner. And then they stumbled across it. The absolutely massive crater. Whoa, it's hard to believe that people really made this, the black-haired man said. Something's off about this place, the blue-haired man said as he stared into the crater. It gives me the creeps. Ah come on, it's just whole dude, the black-haired man said. And then the earth started to shake. Huh? The black-haired man fell on his ass as the ground trembled. Suddenly, a black orb formed in the center of the crater, and dark energy rippled out of it. Then the black orb started to shift and change until it took a new form. The form of the corrupted All for One. All villains must die. All for One said, his voice not sounding like this voice. Instead, it sounded like the voice of countless people, all absolutely enraged. All for One must pay. Then, All for One turned and immediately spotted the two men. Villains. The seemingly resurrected villain raised his arm at the two of them, and both wind and lightning started swirling around his arm. Both men got up and ran in the opposite direction. But it was pointless. They were both already dead. Crack 'em. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Izuku a report, and nothing he had to say was good news. It appears that he killed himself in captivity. I think he knew we were going to force information out of him one way or another. Damn it, Izuku said, slamming his fist onto his desk. Even after he's defeated, that man is determined to drive me insane. Growling, fine, we'll just have to focus on his notes. Also, there seems to have been a disturbance in the ruins, Visa said. There was a massive explosion of an unknown cause. Just send someone to investigate it. Hopefully it's nothing big. Izuku sighed.